Lately I've been thinking a lot about obsession. I'm thinking about the things that come with obsession and isolation when it comes to art. And on that thinking, I think one of the people that I've been researching a lot about has been Vincent van Gogh. So I wanted to do it. So today, kind of studying Vincent van Gogh, and like I don't know, you're also a big fan of Vincent van Gogh. So I wanted to get that, sit here with you and get pick apart his life, his artistic journey, and kind of just see where we can land and see if I can really like get through this idea that I've been thinking about in my head, think it through with you. So to start with, I want to begin with the man, not the artist. We know a lot about the artist, and very also a lot about the man, but I think talk to me about why you think he painted. As a painter yourself, looking at Van Gogh, why do you think he painted? Let's start with the big question.
Well, there's the difference between what I think and what I was taught. What I was taught was that he was a very complex man with complex issues, both physical and mental, social, that sort of thing. And he found that art was a sort of his only escape, really. And then he would basically paint what he saw, what he felt like others would want to see. Basically, he was doing God's work kind of thing. Like he was trying to help other people and himself through his artwork, which is what I was taught. And what I think is that he didn't paint because he wanted to, he painted because he had to. Which is what I agree with myself. When he painted, it's not because he was like, I want to be the greatest artist in the world, I'm gonna become famous. And obviously that's a small, voice in your head. He wants to become famous. Everyone has that. But then I feel like he just had to do it. One of those things that you have to do, same as breathing and blinking for him, I think.
I agree. I think that's kind of what I view obsession as, and I think that's why I've been fascinated by the idea. The idea that some people just have to do something, and it's very difficult because that kind of I understand and isolates them from people around them. Because if you just like he thought, feel like you're doing something because it's just like a God said, or you have no control over it, it's like an obsession, it's like an impulse, right? Then you act very oddly, to say the least. You're a very odd person in society because most people have some rationale about why they do things. If your rationale is that I have to do it, then you're almost like you're searching for something. On that point, I want to get a little bit more Van Gogh, and then I want to kind of see how we relate to his ideas. So on that point, a little bit more about Van Gogh. What do you think he was searching for? What do you think through his art he was trying to reach?
I think he was searching for the truth, his truth. Like I keep mentioning, I have been going through this thing, looking for different, it's hard to explain. Everyone looks for truth in their world and honesty. I feel like he was one of the only artists who were being truly honest with people. And I think that's what he was searching for, is honesty from himself and from others.
How does he do that as a painter? Like, as a painter yourself, what is the search for truth for you in your artistic form?
Well, you can only live truth and honesty from yourself if you're expressing, you don't even have to express it, you just have to experience it and live it. The way that he was living was that he was living as a painter. That's what he wanted to do, what he felt like he had to do. And the only way that he could be honest was paint what he experienced and what he saw. I'm pretty sure we're going to touch on this later on about his quote about, how he felt like the night was a lot more colourful than the daytime. And he showed that, he was honest about it in his paintings by making his nighttime paintings and canvases a lot more colourful than the daytimes. Like his famous the Starry Night type of painting, way more colourful and mystical and magical than the other, one of the grain fields and the woman. That's a bit more like dull, palatable colours compared to the ones where he would paint the nighttime. And there's cafe ones too. Did you see those ones?
You showed it to me.
Yeah.
I remember you showed it to me.
Yeah, that's why I think he's being honest, because he's living by his words, literally.
I think the fascinating thing what I learned about him that I related to on a deep level was kind of like his struggle with that obsession, his struggle with the idea of obsession. Because as I learned about him, he started off as an art dealer, like I was like not an art dealer, but he worked for an art dealer. Then he was disillusioned by that kind of world of the artistic, and then he moved it to like a little bit of religious, kind of like creature, or like kind of people who went around telling other people to become religious, and then he felt disillusion of that also. He fell into artistic, kind of like his artistic journey. I felt like once he found art, he kind of found who he was. But throughout that process, he was obviously plagued by his own mental health issues. But his kind of like his volume of work too, just like is incredible. Like he made so much in such a short period of time because he just kept creating because he fell in love with this thing and really became obsessed with this thing. So I think it's often made me think about like this idea of like before he was found that he was obviously searching for something. Then he found it. He found it in painting. He found it in art. But it was almost like once he found his obsession, it is when it started to go downhill. Is when like he found the thing he really wanted to do. He found the thing that he was made upon this earth to be his purpose. But it was also kind of like his damnation. You know, do you think? Question for you then, as an artist yourself, do you think they're finding the idea of obsession, finding an obsession? Do you think that's is it salvation, or do you think that's a damnation for Van Gogh, but also in general?
I think this salvation damnation thing is completely it's it's really just depends on the kind of person, the kind of life that you want to experience and live. Like, I don't really believe in, anything to do with fate or destiny or societal values. I just don't believe in anything. But what I do believe in is your own individual experience means something because it's your individual experience. You're living you're living experience of the universe. You know,
For your vantage point, yeah, no, I agree.
this sign language there is what I imagine. Um, but what I think, going back to Van Gogh, Vinny, I feel like, honestly, the way that when he finally got to what he wanted to be doing and experiencing things, his internal and external world wasn't colliding. Because again, this was a very sick man. He was a very if he was in today's society, he would be on a lot of medication. He'd be I think pretty much treated the same way he was when he was alive, which is kind of sad. Because the stigma around mental health and physical health and stuff. But I feel like when he was expressing himself the way that he saw things from the internal world, and it wasn't matching the external, that's when things start to get, because it's a cognitive dissonance. This is my understanding of the term. So when you can't, you ever got the homeostasis to mirror things?
Yes.
So it becomes sort of like there's something missing because it's not mirrored. Like if you're living something and you're not experiencing it through what others see, you just to convince yourself that you're crazy, and that must be a horrible thing to experience. So then it would be him experiencing one thing and then seeing another or hearing another, and then you just don't know what's real and what's not. So then that in itself would set you on a downward spiral. That's just inevitable.
Yeah, now you mentioned also like just like how like if he was in this society, you probably would have been a hella like crazy meds. I think that's such a like the tragedy in it, right? Like all this artistic brilliance, you could argue if it comes from his insanity or it comes from just his innate talent, but that would have been stifled if he was on so many meds without even being able to create. So like it was almost like we got to see his insanity, we got to see all the stuff, kind of his ear off and everything, but because he was allowed to express himself, he was able to create incredible art. And like just think how many artists out there do we kind of like stifle because we want to help as a society, but they don't fit into our societal guidelines of this is what it's supposed to be, this is how it's supposed to act. And so we kind of like put them down in a sense, whether it's through verbally or just even through like medication. And then they don't produce the beauty that is innate within them or that they can see in the world, like you spoke about, through their vantage point. And it's like, it's almost as if, and this is an artist speaking, so take it for a grain of salt, but it's almost as if artists can like, through their struggle, whether it's internally or whether like through their life, they can create beauty, which is almost like a version of truth. Like they can create that thing for them that is true. And once they create that thing, they save so many people. Like, but they're the ones sacrificed whatever mentally to save people because people just don't want to think about that shit. But like artists have no choice to think about that shit. And so like they'll kind of do that and then they'll be able to save people because people can relate to their painting or to their art. Do you agree with that?
I think to understand that part of things, you have to sort of go back to what is even the point in expressing yourself in the first place as an artist. Like, why are these artists going out, creating paintings, creating poems, creating, fragmented essays or aphorisms? Why are they doing this? And again, it goes back to maybe they just have to, maybe they don't want to because they feel like they're being, you know, exiled by society for this kind of thing from, wanting to, because innately as humans we want to fit in. That's a normal feeling to have. And when you aren't fitting in like that, because you have this ingrained difference, everyone has a difference. That's what neurodivergence means, is where you have everyone has their individual brain chemistry and how they act and how they what they believe in. So to understand, why we feel like they had to create things in the first place, is to understand that innate difference. Because again, not if you go back to your point about how he helped those people, he also really irritated lots of people as well. There's thousands of people that also don't like him as well because of his, he was wasn't exactly the male model of perfection. Some people think that you have to live a certain way to be a role model of some kind. I mean, he cut it for his ear. Would you want your kids to be looking up to him and that sort of thing?
It's like good of what artist do you?
Exactly. I mean, it depends on the success, but he didn't have success until after he died.
That's true success. But anyway,
So-
I agree with you.
And so it really depends on who you're talking about and really what you define as, the right method.
On that point, actually, he has a quote. He goes, I put my heart and soul into my work and I've lost my mind in the process. I love that quote, but I want to ask you, what does that quote mean to you?
I feel like that goes back to the difference between his internal and external world. He was, if you are, okay, like if you just like put it into something else, like you're creating this huge sandcastle and you're so proud of it, and someone just looks at it and goes, okay, so what about your taxes, that kind of thing. And you're thinking, you're so crushed because you feel like you just created this amazing thing and you're so proud of it. You're so like, wow, I didn't think that I could even do something like this, let alone there's something this majestical and big. And someone just looks at it and goes, okay, like that's a soul crushing thing, and you just put your heart and soul into it, and now your mind is going, so why am I so proud of myself, if it's not that good? Like, why am I doing all of this? What's the point? And then that will lead to things like nihilism, depression, suicidal thoughts, and it's just a sort of downward spiral because you sort of you're putting so much energy into it, and for what?
Did you stop believing in this, Chef? And I think it's the gift and the curse of being an artist, right? It's like you feel a lot, you feel too much, and that helps you create, because I think you can't create without feelings almost.
And not everyone understands the value.
Yeah. I'm so right. Not everyone understands the value. I think that's what makes it a struggle. That's what keeps you apart from most people, because you give so much of yourself, like you were saying, he gives his heart and soul to this thing. And then if people don't appreciate it, or even by the fact that you're giving so much, you will lose a part of your mind because you just it's too much for a human being to do. Like you need some of your mind to kind of like exist in society, but if you give everything to your work, and then it's like, what is left of you?
Yeah. As human beings, our survival mechanism is to be like the other person. You have that whole mindset of, psychology wise, you have your things like your limbic system telling you that you have to be, in a group, safety numbers, that sort of thing. So you change yourself through your frontal cortex, by the way, frontal lobe, telling you have to act this way to be accepted in society. And then you have this inner sort of like passion that's telling you, why do I have to do this? This doesn't make any sense. Why do I have to, follow this way? So when you have this, kind of like, this imbalance in your brain and your soul, it's just sort of it just isn't really, after a while it just again puts you off. You just become not a whole person.
Zooming in on that, going deeper on that, there's this idea of the tortured artist, right? I think especially nowadays we romanticize the idea. I found myself doing it, which I think that's what this episode kind of encapsulates. Like I think Vincent van Gogh is the epitome of the tortured artist, and I think a lot of modern creators romanticize that. I do want to be like him. Do want to be like, I give my soul to this work, and look at me, I'm just like on the floor dying, but my work is great. And I think they would trade that for anything. What do you think about the idea of the tortured artist? Do you think that's like um is just that? Do you think it's just a romantic idea? Do you think it has no place in reality if you want to be an artist?